Welcome to Nerds of the Old Republic. We're here in the fall. We are ready to get our spicy on, talking about Dune. Mike has made this gorgeous freaking drink. You want to tell everybody what it looks like, Mike?
So it's a spicy margarita. We salted the rims, of course, with lime and margarita salt, and we made it with fresh jalapenos. And we just we hope it's not too spicy. We hope it's good. I was kind of eyeballing it there at the end. I got away from the recipe a bit. It looks good.
As the best chefs and bartenders do.
No, That's right.
It does look good.
It definitely looks good, so let's just hope it tastes the match.
I think the artisanal big chunk of ice is my favorite part.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait for people to see that up on the site.
Improve every cocktail.
Exactly.
Oh, for sure.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
It is very good. It's actually not that spicy.
It's not, but it cuts down on the sweetness you can get even from regular limes.
Yeah.
Margarita mix itself is basically Kool-Aid for adults.
Yes.
And you use limes, but even still, those can be pretty sweet.
Right. So it has fresh limes in it too, and I feel like the jalapenos don't really add that much spice as much as you said, kind of cut back on the tanginess.
There's a little tone of spice in there, but nothing overpowering, which is great.
Yeah, I wouldn't say my eyes are turning blue or anything from the spice.
No, lips aren't burning.
Not yet, no.
Not a dick. We are not bound to Earth now. We can remain on planet Earth.
That's true, although I won't get the awesome insight powers.
Oh, that is true.
Damn it. God knows I can.
Although we don't know yet. I mean, this is the first time any of us has had this drink, so...
I'm pretty sure if I have a couple margaritas, I'm going to gain all sorts of things, I think.
Adam becomes a Cuisatch Heteran.
There's a little bit of spicy aftertaste, I notice. Just after I've swallowed, I get a little bit of that jalapeno.
Yeah, I get that. Just right, it's almost like you don't get it until it's in your throat.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I know jalapenos don't really smell, but I feel like because it's floating next to my nose when I'm drinking it, I imagine the smell there.
Yeah.
Which probably helps a little bit too. This was a great find.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great recipe. Great job,
I'm impressed.
I'm a little disappointed there was no worm in the bottle, though.
Yeah.
That would have really matched the theme well.
I think that was banned in 1937, Grandpa.
I think they still make them.
No,
you got to go
just
places
kidding.
for that.
I'm giving them the hard time. They still do, I think.
I remember watching, was it Poltergeist or something, or one of them, where the worm comes alive in the bottle?
Yeah,
that freaked me out as a kid.
I don't think I could ever touch the worm in a bottle after seeing that. I don't know why people fought over that shit.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can eat that worm. People
Allegedly,
do, right?
yeah.
And it is supposed to be just chock full of alcohol.
It looks like a used condom. I can't imagine ever trying to eat that.
Wow.
Oh,
That's a vivid image there, Adam.
I had some bad nights watching people eat worms from,
I've heard that they have in other places, like Alaska and places where people go crazy from sun deprivation, that they have, pickled toes and things that they'll put in, alcohol. So, if someone loses a digit, they throw it in a bottle of whiskey, and then that becomes, the ceremonial drinking whiskey.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you know where these places are? Because this sounds like a good podcast road trip.
Oh, my God, Mike. You just planned our summer. Right there.
The next zombie thing we do.
That's right.
It's Yukon, Alaska, so it's going to be a bit of a trip, guys. That might be fun.
Fine.
I'm in for that.
Nerds on the road. All right. If you guys want that, hit us up on the socials.
My wife and I were going to do Alaska for our 10th anniversary, and then global pandemic hit. So couldn't do that.
So sorry, honey. Put it on hold. We're going as a guy thing.
Or I know you want to have a nice romantic night. However, I got to go drink some toe whiskey with the guys.
Yeah. That's right. Plan your trip, and we'll just come too. That's all.
Yeah, I don't think she'd mind.
Not at all. We do have a special cast, though, in that we're comparing two drinks tonight. Mm-hmm. So we've got the OG tequila margarita, and then I've recently become obsessed with Mezcal, the cousin to tequila, made from agave as well, but smokier. So I thought, well, if we're talking about Dune and things with war and battle and just dryness and moisture being important, Mezcal's smoky aftertaste kind of came right to mind. Plus, we have this jalapeno margarita, which I think could be improved. I'm not saying Mike did anything wrong. I'm just thinking, like, maybe if we tried it with mezcal. So we're going to do two beverages tonight before we get into it.
I also, full disclosure, I have not drank any water in the last 2 weeks to prepare for this cast. So
you've been wearing a still suit made of a hefty bag and some duct tape.
Yep,
I've noticed that.
It's been rough, guys, but I preserved my leaders.
I will try to contain myself because when I drink too many margaritas, I tend to start sobbing uncontrollably, and we will not be offering water for the dead this evening.
No, hopefully not. But it could be me. All right, we'll catch you guys on the flip side, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, we are. Well, I can't speak for you guys, but I am halfway through my marg. And,
don't speak for me because I am basically 100% of the way through.
Is marg a legit term? Is that the new thing?
It is how dive bars advertise their $3 margaritas.
What if I wanted to call it a Rita?
You can. You sound like Bud Light, but it's okay.
I've been trying to do that with my students, like using like the last part of their name as their nickname instead of the first part.
Yeah.
You know, like someone would be like, what would it be? Like Jillian.
Yeah.
Instead of calling her Jill, I'll call her Leon. It's not working.
That's okay.
They don't like it.
You know, names is a really good transition over to the book. So, Frank Herbert's Dune, one of the OG sci-fi classics, and as usual, I'm the noob drawn to the book thanks to you guys because of your knowledge of it. And I guess I want to know, since the movie's coming up, trailers look gorgeous. What did you guys know about Dune from pop culture before you read it, or I guess while you read it? Either way.
I started reading Dune 5 years ago, and I was about halfway through and enjoying it. And then my son was born, and I stopped reading, period, for quite a while.
Yep.
I picked it up again last year, and I was around the end of book 1, maybe even slightly into book 2, within the first book, to be clear, not the second Dune novel. When we decided that this was going to be a cast that we were going to do. So I put it back down again. So this was actually my third go at Dune. I cannot say that I have any history with it other than that, or that my knowledge of it was other than just general. I'm aware of the movies that have flopped and the difficulties they've had translating it to the screen. I was aware of the basic plot and themes of it, but beyond that, my knowledge of Dune was not extensive. It was just a book that was on my radar that I wanted to read.
I have to say, very similar background. It's funny, almost eerie in the way that I tried to get at it about 5 years ago too, and got into it. And I don't know if it was a confluence of competing interests at the time, but I was just like, I don't have time for this. And I'm like, this is going to take way too much effort. So I put it down, and I never got back to it. But it's one of those, like you said, it's one of those touchstones in science fiction that you just become aware of in this sphere of nerddom. And I just, as a Star Wars fan, as a Arthur C. Clarke fan, and Isaac Asimov and all that, you just become aware of Dune, and its presence is huge in that realm. And I knew about, David Lynch, I think, did the TV series or something?
Yes.
And I remember seeing parts of it.
It was a movie, David Lynch.
It was like a miniseries movie, right?
No, it was a movie.
Who did the miniseries then?
Someone did that. Was that in the 1990s, maybe? They did I think they did that.
Yeah, it was I remember that.
It was one of Lynch's early movies. It was after Blue Velvet. It was in the mid-80s. A very young Patrick Stewart was in it.
That's right.
But and the thinking or the reputation of the movie is that it may have been better, except that it was a lot of control from the studio and the producer. Okay. Lynch didn't really get to make the movie that he wanted to make. I've never seen it, so I have no.
I looked and I couldn't find it.
Yeah,
I know I must have come across it at some point because I do have those images of Patrick Stewart and stuff. But where and how and when and for how much, I have no recollection.
Yeah, I tried the public library. I tried my streaming services, Amazon, Hulu, Netflix.
Nothing.
And yeah, I mean, you could pay for it extra, and considering I'm going to pay to see the new movie when it comes out, I figured I would save my dollars. That TV miniseries was 2000, which, is 21 years ago, but is still more recent than we all thought.
Was it Cronenberg? Who did that? That name seems to
Cron-
change for some reason. Maybe that couldn't be. I must be wrong.
One moment.
It was not Cronenberg, but Cronenberg would have been a good one.
Now that you think of like what ifs, we should get to that later. Maybe after we watch the new movie.
Who could have done Baz Luhrmann, of course.
Oh,
Great music.
oh my god.
Awful everything else.
Don't even get me started, guys.
Jay-Z and Beyonce and Fergie on the soundtrack.
I'll be bringing in my F-bombs early.
We're actually prodding Sean for the F-bombs.
Keep poking
as
the
we
bear,
speak.
literally, here.
We're trying to bring out the epic booming "fuck you" early on this podcast.
John Harrison.
Oh, I had no way I would have even thought.
Series directed by. Herbert has a writing credit. Well, actually, he
son.
only has the
Right?
unaccredited credit. No, John Harrison also gets the main writing credit for the teleplay. Herbert's only there because it's his novel.
Yeah,
He
okay.
didn't have any input on the series. So,
No, that's it, then. That's all I got.
same here. It's funny. Like, for as much as it looms large in the genre of sci-fi, there's really not a lot out there in it. I don't get like a lot of muad'Dib references from people who read books or
I like
something
the way you
like that.
pronounce that, by the way.
Thank you. I worked on it for a little bit.
I would
I'm
call
not
it
sure.
Muad'Dib, but I don't know if
I'm not sure. That's probably right, actually.
I have nothing to base it on.
Yeah.
Sean and I already disagreed over, was it Fremen versus Freeman?
Yeah.
We were
Oh, I kept saying free man.
free
But
man.
That's,
So we've got
that's
three
like the
different
New England
interpretations.
buffalo, like, free man sort
I
of
was
thing.
going Fremen because there's only one E and one L. I guess Fremen, right? I don't know.
I guess
I like the buffalo accent here, though. I like that.
You know what? I
It's,
subconsciously was like, you know what? They're free.
they're free men.
They're free men, right?
Oh, boy. Reel it in, Karen. Reel it in. All right. Yeah, it's just interesting how little pop culture intellectual property there is out there of it. And I wonder if it's because Herbert held it so closely to him and his family and just didn't license it out like crazy. Like Lord of the Rings, no offense, Tolkien, but you can go anywhere and get like yourself some elven writing notebooks. You can get yourself some elvish ears.
Well, that's
or
more the estate's
bows and
responsibility,
stuff.
and Christopher
Fair.
Tolkien cashing in on his father's
That's
legacy
fair.
more than anything.
Well, and Lord of the Rings has, even long before the Jackson movies, Led Zeppelin was writing songs about it, and people
Right.
were scribbling Frodo lives on the subway wall. So Lord of the Rings has definitely deeply permeated the culture for decades and decades.
But
and Dune always has too, but in a much more nebulous sort of way.
I think Dune's more of the underground hit. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, if you get the Dune references, then you're deep into it, and you really know. Like, I didn't realize there were so many sequels in print. Like, there are
I had no clue
It's a whole
until I
series.
almost
Right.
bought the wrong book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much Dune is out there. I'm like, I thought it was just one thing.
It's funny though about the Dune references. I caught myself telling my son a lot recently because he is tightly wound because of his parents. I keep saying like stress is the mind killer, or fear is the mind killer, which is the direct quote.
Right.
But I just put like anxiety is the mind killer.
Wow.
Because I dig it. It lines up with a lot of the other things that like I'm working on personally with like mindfulness and meditation and stuff, which isn't necessarily like the Middle Eastern culture that is incorporated into the book directly, but it just kind of lines up with a lot of stuff going on right now.
Absolutely.
I can't think like what other references have you heard then, or like because you said like if you get them you really know.
Obviously,
but-
the worms are
Oh, that's
the
right.
one
Yeah.
thing
The
that
spice,
everybody knows.
the navigators.
Share the spice. I forgot about that. Yeah.
I mean, the House Atreides and Harkonnens, those names kind of crop
I mean,
up
House
once.
Stark and House.
Well, we can talk about that later, Adam. That's
I'm gonna. Yeah, I like both of these.
See, now I thought it was
properties.
Corleone and Barzini and...
oh man, we're going all different kinds of directions here.
Yeah, so maybe I'm giving one writer too much of a hard time for following Herbert because, the idea of mafia families or the idea of tribalism is not new to anybody.
No, they
It's
didn't
been
invent
around
that
forever.
for sure.
Yeah. So, what surprised you guys about the book before we get into some of the details? Did anything surprise you?
I think I remember trying it originally, like as you said a few years ago, same thing, and finding it really dense at first, and then getting back into it again, I realized this isn't as bad as I thought. Now maybe my mind's more clear now, my children are older or something, but I had an easier time getting into it. Once I did, I realized, wow, this is quite the page turner. I was really enjoying it, and I think I was expecting it to be work to get through that book, and it turned out to be actually pretty fun, and I liked it a lot. So that was surprising to me.
What I was surprised by was, and this is for me, I'm going to use the word ironically here, reminiscent of A New Hope. Even though A New Hope is, of course, partially influenced by the setting of Dune.
Desert Planet.
Yeah, but
Tatooine was original, man. He didn't steal that.
No.
You know, the genius of A New Hope, you know, when it came out, was that it hinted at this incredibly endless and epic galaxy with many, many, you know, underlying stories and histories and mythologies. But when you go back to it, you're actually surprised by how little happens in terms of the actual characters and plot. Very little happens. You know, it's sort of a heist film.
Yeah.
With like a big fight at the end, you know? And those two things are like, they seem incompatible, but that's true of A New Hope. And as I was reading Dune, I was like feeling the same way. I'm like, this feels both. It feels incredibly huge. It feels like so dense and so epic on an incredible scale, but when you actually pause and think about what happens over the beginning, you know, middle and end of this novel, it doesn't feel like that much. Like, it doesn't feel... If I were just to articulate the plot points, I feel like I could do it very briefly. So, that's not a criticism. That's just the thing that reminded me of A New Hope and surprised me a little bit about the book.
That's a great point, Mike, because the world building is huge. It is absolutely... You get this concept that there's this gigantic galaxy-spanning human empire with all kinds of intrigue and political machinations and all these things going on, but the story is so localized that you really don't get that expansive sense. It's very personal.
Yeah, it's a tiny story set against a massive backdrop. And, you know, as I like to always imagine the creative process, and I feel like that actually takes a lot of skill to pull off. Because there's you have to avoid that, you know, those info dumps and that, you know, tons of exposition. You have to sort of just hint at all of that epicness, and it's there. But in terms of plot, you know, it's a small story. It's a very small, contained story set against a massive backdrop.
It really intrigues me how they did that, because while I was reading, Herbert, when I was reading it, I'm like, wow, I still have like 400 pages left.
Right.
I still have 300 pages left, and he had just gotten, you know, like, the coup had just happened. And Paul and his mom were, like, basically wandering the desert for what, at that time, felt like a long time, but really, looking back, it's like, a chapter. And then they get found by the Freemans. I'm going to say it all 3 times. And then thus
free
begins
men or
the
free
transition.
women.
That's right, free humans.
It's actually from
like human out there. Yeah. But it really does speak to how much time it takes to build a world.
Yeah.
You know, because we're on Arrakis. All right, are we settled on Arrakis? Arrakis?
I think Arrakis.
Arrakis,
okay.
yeah.
The one thing that I really struggle with sometimes with, like, sci-fi or fantasy is the pronunciation of, like, the names that are created for the book, especially if they're not, like, if they're brand new.
Oh, we get it wrong, we're going to get eviscerated, too.
Oh, for sure. That's the worst part. You can send all flame comments to I don't know, actually. I don't have a burner email address. But, you know, just the world building that takes place is so masterful that you don't really notice the passage of pages as you go through. I was really impressed with that. Even though I finished this book when we were in Boston back in July, and I just remember sitting, because we were exhausted, so Sam would fall asleep, we were in an Airbnb, and I'd read for like 2-3 hours by myself. No one else was up, so I could just plow through it. And I just remember the pages were turning fast, but it was almost like the time was going slowly, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like the whole time relativity weirdness that can happen sometimes.
Yep.
And I think I appreciate the book now more looking back on it, and I enjoyed it when I was reading it. So I don't even know how that happens as a writer. I'm in awe.
Wow. Well put.
Oh, thanks. I had a couple months to think of my response there.
I finished it, ironically, in the sand on a beach in August, and I had a similar kind of feeling about it.
Well, I finished the book today. So
You've got the best memory.
That's right.
Can I throw you under the bus, though? Can you tell the story of the person you saw? Was it on a beach?
Yes.
Reading Dune? The podcast text thread blew up one day when Mike was like...
Well, so my family and I and some friends were in Hilton Head, and we were on the beach, and let's just say a very attractive person, happened to pass in front, wearing a very, let's say, becoming swimsuit.
I feel like you're bringing that word back.
I think becoming, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Michelle Obama made it possible.
Certainly, as an act of appreciation, my eyes, may have followed a bit.
Well, human beings appreciate aesthetics, Mike. You can't apologize for that.
And I, as I asked myself, why are my eyes following this particular human being and the becoming bathing suit that they were wearing? I happened to notice they were carrying a big copy of Dune. They put their chair down within 30 or 40 yards of where we were camped out and sat down and proceeded to continue reading Dune. And I said, of course, the literary sensibility is what I was drawn to.
Of course. As a man of the word would be.
That's right.
Yes. No, I just love that. Whether that's the movie's influence or just the enduring influence of the book.
Nerds come in all shapes and sizes.
Hell yeah, they do.
It's a very nice shape, I would say. This particular one.
So one of the things that struck me was kind of the clear connection to the inclusion of the Islamic world building and the inclusion of the Islamic kind of mindset for a lot of things here. And I was just wondering what you made of that. Was that off-putting? Was that interesting considering the current climate in the West of, America?
You got to look back. When Herbert wrote this, what was it, the 60s? I think, right? I don't have the book in front of me.
I don't want to misquote it, so while you're talking, I'm going to look it up.
But if you think about that mid-20th century, it might have even been earlier than the 60s, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. And the idea of Islam was just exotic in America.
I 64? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought here.
But regardless...
65.
You were off by a year. That's pretty damn impressive.
Okay, so we were all in that zone. But if you think about what Americans knew of Islam was either the Nation of Islam...
I'm going to interrupt you one more time here.
Damn you, Mike.
Mike is finally going to make it Sean for all the times.
1965 was a great year in pop music history because that was the year that a certain artist went from folk to electric.
Get it? There it is. All right. Now, see, you lacked last time, but you made up for it.
He's got it already.
I got it in first this time, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Give him a double ding for getting it first, Adam. There you go.
You will not be interrupted again.
Where was I going with that? Now that Bob Dylan's on my mind.
What were you trying to say?
Tangled words.
So in mid-60s, you think about Islam in this country as this exotic. If you're not thinking of Muhammad Ali and the Nation of Islam and all that, or
think of Malcolm X.
Malcolm X, right?
Yeah.
It was just this other side of the world kind of feeling, or you might have seen it in a movie as these guys wearing things on their face, and you're like, well, that's different.
Indiana Jones.
Right. It didn't...
For my generation.
It didn't have the immediacy of a culture that we have now as being perceived as aggressive. Mm-hmm. But I think Herbert looked at it and saw the idea of the... I don't say that jihad, because that word gets misused way too much. But the concept of actively spreading and trying to, like Christian missionaries, push the word, and now the new word would be the Book of Allah and all of that. I think he foresaw something there, and you see a lot of other sci-fi properties pick up on that too. I'm thinking of Chronicles of Riddick or whatever it was called, Blackout or whatever, or Lights Out, whatever that movie was.
The movie was Chronicles of Riddick.
But the first one, though, when it was just the aliens and he can see in the dark or something, but there was a huge Islamic presence in that movie, and I think it was late 90s or whatever, before 9/11.
Yeah.
And it was one of those people kind of foresaw this spread of those ideologies and those just as cultural touchstones from Islam, and I think Herbert was just ahead of it with that. And if you see it, it's really interesting. This book has a really great blend of Islam and Catholicism. I think the OC Bible, whatever they call it, the Orange Catholic Bible, was a big part of it. Mm-hmm. The just sort of that what would happen to humanity in several thousand years, and all of our cultural ideas.
I think that I don't have any nearly as profound of an answer here as Sean.
Thank you.
We can pause it. You can think, and then we'll come back.
Yeah.
No, that's okay.
To the magic of editing. It only takes like half a second.
This whole thing took actually 3 days. We just edited it together.
But
this is my family.
My thinking as I was reading this was, the interesting thing about the fantasy genre is it went from being, one of the worst genres in terms of cultural representation to being, I think, one of the best in recent, 10 or 20 years. In the era that Herbert was writing Dune, it was all English medieval, castles and
you had high fantasy.
Yeah, very medieval European.
Thanks, Tolkien.
And I think that whereas a modern audience may read Dune now and not be particularly impressed with, bringing in the other culture and stressing the other culture's traditions and everything, I feel like in 1965 that was a big deal. And I don't, I use the word fantasy here. I'm going to make the argument like I think we did for Star Wars that Dune probably fits better in fantasy than science fiction if we're going to classify it in one of the genres. And I think in 1965 what Herbert was doing was pretty progressive.
I agree too in many ways, because I'm trying to think back to what was happening in the culture outside of literature in the 65. So like I keep seeing like Sgt. Pepper with like the Nehru jackets and stuff. Like people were in America.
Go-go boots.
Oh, well. Yeah. But many people were open to different worldviews other than the Western American culture in the 60s. And so it makes sense that, this book would have been published at that time and found a home in many people's hearts for that reason. But you're right, though. I'm thinking of even just the books we've read, like Saga, and how that deals with diversity of both sexual orientation, gender orientation, and that sort of thing. Like, the genre of speculative fiction, I think, has done more for representation than, well, for sure, straight literature, and I mean straight in all the ways that can be taken. When you go to the capital L literature section in a bookstore, you don't get the representation that you do in speculative fiction, which doesn't always make it to those shelves.
And I feel like that's a fairly recent development. Like I said, maybe last couple of decades. But it's a stunning turnaround. I mean, as recently as like the 80s, early 90s, it was Robert Jordan in The Wheel of Time. Very medieval European.
And huge, again.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to criticize the fantasy literature of those decades because, all the way back to Tolkien, I appreciate all of it and enjoy it very much. But in terms of its representative nature, it wasn't checking all those boxes. And then I feel like at some point in the last quarter century, it has swung hard the other way. And I feel like in its ability to represent cultures and histories and worldviews and perspectives, it's at the very pinnacle of the genres in terms of its ability to do that, its willingness to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think some of that comes from the genre's ability to embrace the sweeping nature of like a saga. So literary fiction in America, you get 280 pages done.
Right.
Pretty much.
Unless you're Stephen King.
Unless you're Stephen King, in which case you write it 3,000 pages a day. But
or Dean Koontz.
Dean Koontz has a team of writers who write under Dean Koontz's name, just like
Is this like a room of
Dr.
monkeys?
Seuss. Yeah, it's a room of monkeys pounding on keyboards. But no, seriously, it's like...
Come fight us, Dean Koontz. We'll televise
He's
it.
not even alive. He's like Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh,
Someone
you're
just
right.
plays some music and he pounds on a keyboard and the monkeys pound on the keyboards and they put it all together. That's fine.
True fact.
Whatever. But, one thing that I think is off-putting to other people about the speculative fiction genre is how large the books can be. But in that, volume, you're able to make space for everybody in ways that I don't think other genres necessarily try or do.
Yeah, agreed. What's really cool about this, and it's a bit of a hard segue off of that, but
That's right.
I really appreciated that when he built this world, there's only like one alien in the whole thing, and it's the worms. Everything else is human-dominated and Earth species-dominated, which is fascinating because I believe at that time people were looking at the Fermi paradox we're looking at like the Great Silence and trying to figure out why have we not contacted anybody else yet? Why can't we find life out there? And the idea that we really truly are unique. And this book plumbs the depths of that kind of despair in a way. Like, there is nothing that we don't make out there, which I found to be really an interesting, almost barely touched upon little sub-note, but something that really definitely carries a ton of weight throughout the whole narrative.
I hadn't thought of that at all, but now that you're saying it, I'm thinking and I'm saying, yeah. I mean, in terms of intelligent life forms, they were just human beings. And obviously in Star Trek and Star Wars, they might have like the color blue on their face, or they might have some interesting nose ridges.
But they speak English.
Their nose
but they
is
speak
different.
flawless English, and they're very humanoid.
Well, English is the best
but,
language. Right?
But they are, and that's an interesting, different take that I hadn't thought about as I was reading the book. But you're right. The idea is that humanity has just spread out into a basically otherwise empty universe in terms of intelligent life, at least as far as they've gotten.
Yep. Yeah. It's move-in ready.
There you go. That's right. New
Small,
planet.
a little bit of a worm infestation, but
some throw pillows, a couple
fine.
of curtains there.
You get some thumpers, you throw them over there, you hop on the worm.
Don't worry about it.
Speaking of worms, I'm going to transition back to drinks. We are all empty.
Are we dry?
Yes, sir.
We are dry. We need some moisture, not just liquid moisture. So we're going to take a pause right now. We're going to switch over to the Mezcal Spicy Margarita, and we'll be back after that.
So Adam's mouth is currently full of meat, so we're going to take over the hosting category. Obviously, the first drink is also kicked in very nicely for me, at least. I don't know about the rest of you. I'm ready to hit the second drink. Adam, you want to tell us what we're drinking tonight?
Yeah, so second drink of the night is just a Mezcal Margarita, spicy. I did mix in jalapenos in the shaker. I did not mix in jalapenos for garnish here. Everything else otherwise is the same, just as Mike made it the first time.
What the fuck, Adam? Okay.
I got lazy, didn't cut stuff. That's what it was. But yeah, no, it should be smokier, but still kind of impart the same flavor in the end. So, cheers. Let's see what we think.
Cheers. The smoke hits you immediately.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
It's like mesquite.
You were like on a smoke
I'm on
journey
a binge.
lately.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's going to do for my health, but
And put liquid
smoking
smoke and
drinks
everything.
and yeah.
Well,
Get a cereals, put liquid smoke.
I am a sucker for anything with smoke flavor to it. My favorite whiskeys and scotches are the smoky, peaty ones, and I am a fan of this. I don't know if
I thought you might like it.
I don't want to officially say I've not had a drink with mezcal in it before, because you have cocktails in restaurants all the time, and it may just be slipping my memory. But it is the only time that is coming to me right now, and I'm a fan. I am a fan.
I gotta say, I'm liking it too.
All right.
It reminds me of eating some jerky or something like this.
It really, you know what? I was thinking, could you drop this in a Bloody Mary next to a Slim Jim?
Ooh.
And have that kind of play off each other.
Adam likes to infuse everything with meat.
You would not survive my bar experience. I might not survive my bar experience, but
What's your
I'm glad
cholesterol?
it worked out. I'm on cholesterol medicine already. Thank you very much.
Are you really?
Doing okay, yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's family, though. Yeah, us Polskis have real high cholesterol that our liver just likes to crank out on us.
My diabetes must be counteracting that part of my DNA
Oh,
because
right.
mine's super low for some reason.
Yeah.
Not good low.
Oh, no, never mind. Sorry. Probably.
Yeah, it works out somehow in the middle.
Yeah, I promise I eat vegetables and stuff, but,
I'm sure you do.
that's, I'm glad this works out.
Yeah.
I am pleasantly surprised, too. It's
I'm a fan.
not overbearing, but just the touch I was hoping would have.
And it's not that I didn't like the first drink. That drink was
No,
excellent.
I like that one, too.
Yeah.
But this just it's like a whole other flavor palette. And
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it.
Well, that first drink tasted like a margarita with jalapeno.
Yeah.
This tastes like a different thing, and like a really interesting thing. There's a more complex flavor to it.
It's almost like how Dune, you get to like the second and third books, and it feels like a different thing.
Just a point for bringing it back to the book.
Yeah, I gotta try. School night.
No, speaking of Dune,
Roll with it. No, I'm glad it worked.
It's okay, Adam. You can finish chewing. We can fill the space while
There you go. I shoved a pizza, or not a pizza bite, a buffalo wing bite in my mouth while trying to breathe.
Sean was premature on bringing it back. Sean tends to be premature.
Yeah,
we've heard.
I'm early.
He always finishes first, though.
My pull-up game is weak.
Oh. Is that a Lizzo reference?
No, not Lizzo. That was actually from WAP.
WAP, okay.
I was listening to the Richard Cheese version earlier
Gotcha.
with my brother, who had never heard of Richard Cheese, and I played WAP for him, thinking that's a good way to introduce him to it.
Yes, that would be. I've not heard Richard Cheese's version of it.
Did you tell him what the abbreviation means?
Well, he already knew that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because
so Megan Thee Stallion taught him well. So.
That's who it is. I'm sorry.
It's
Megan
about
Thee
a cat,
Stallion.
right? Who fell in a pool.
Fell in a pool.
Yes.
It's one wet ass cat.
Right, Punani Dasani. I mean,
there you go. I think my favorite version is it's almost up there with like how awful Richard Cheese's is. Rick Cheese's.
His versions are great, by the way.
His versions are great.
Awful in a good
I'm
way.
not knocking you. There's a YouTuber who I listen to who redoes. Redoes, not redo. They remake songs. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
In different styles, and so they did WAP in the style of Barbershop Quartet, and similar to Dick Cheese.
That probably works fantastic.
That's amazing.
It was. I was unaware of the song until they did that, and I'm like, how is this on the radio?
I got to throw this out there too while we're at it, because I know with the long reach of our media power that Richard Cheese will hear of this, and he'll inevitably listen to this cast. Dick, if you're listening, we would love to do a cast with you.
We're a fan.
If you want to bring the band and play in the background.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
We would.
Or he could do, one of those things where he does like a version of our theme song.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
And we feature that in an episode,
I would for sure feature that.
Richard Cheese, we would be greatly in your debt.
Find you on the socials there,
Indeed.
Richard. We are joking around about our reach here, but really do want to say a thank you, though. We've just passed 500 downloads in less than a year.
Well, somewhere north of 500.
North of
downloads,
500.
Adam. I mean, you gotta keep it nebulous. There.
We have over 500 downloads as of this recording. Mm-hmm. And we have listeners on every continent except Antarctica. I just
Come on,
checked it
Antarctica,
today.
what the fuck?
Where the fuck are you
Not
at,
pulling her
Noah scientists?
Jeez. Come on, you guys, if anyone's going to listen to us, it's going to be you.
That's right.
If anybody wants to...
No, I just alienated the scientific
That's
community.
right.
All right, you asshole.
Yeah. Why don't scientists want to read dystopia? I don't know. Maybe because it's their fucking life.
Oh,
man.
symmetry.
Yeah. But a big thank you, though, to everybody for that. Big thank you to Brazil. Saw you today, if you're listening still. Australia. Our Australian friends are representing strong in the last month. Few downloads.
I wish I could say thank you in Portuguese, but I don't know how.
I don't know Portuguese.
I could say thank you in Australian.
Yeah.
Thanks, mates. No, that was terrible. I apologize to my...
lost our Aussie
It was a
listener.
poor accent, but it was also highly offensive, I think, to Australians.
Yeah, that was bad. I should know more about Australia, knowing that I have family there. So I should.
Yeah.
I got to work on it. Sorry, guys.
It's all right.
You're probably our listeners anyway, so it's all good.
We'll nail it next time.
Thank
The
you, though.
stereoting will be on point next time.
That's right.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'll tell you what.
Stay with us.
I'm not a bogan. They'll get it.
Okay, we're gonna
Just sipping my drink here going, how many people are we bleeding here from the podcast?
My mission this whole time.
lost the Australian contingent.
That's all right.
Somehow our odometer's running backwards now.
We are now
can't
sub
just put it
500.
backwards.
You gave back a download.
Damn it. All right, so we had left off talking about, the inclusions of different culture in Dune. And I wonder what you think about how Herbert characterizes female characters.
Bene Gesserit witch.
Well, I know. The book was written in 1965, and obviously a lot has changed since 1965 to 2021. But I'm interested in your takes on the female characters.
Mike? I'll take it. So
Max the bus up on Mike.
Sorry, we could edit that out. I don't know. I just I didn't want to keep monopolizing everything, but I think honestly, Herbert does it. I want to say like it's tough because I want to parse my words because I don't want to get in trouble. But at the same time, I think he's pretty fair. I think Jessica is a strong female character who takes some agency over her life, even though she's kind of fated to this mother. What is it? Mother superior kind of role. What do they call her?
Oh, I gotta look at what the title is now. The downside of me finishing the book way ahead of time.
but some kind of like super witch. I don't know. And
Super witch.
the fact that like.
That's what it was, actually.
Yeah, is that what it was? Super witch.
Super witch.
It sounds like a friggin'.
Super witch.
Oh my god! I was gonna say that sounds like a Black Sabbath song to me. You're a super witch. That was a terrible Ozzy too. Oh, man, I'm off today. I don't know what it is, but
We'll get you next cast.
I feel like it was interesting how he almost blended some of the gender expectations too, and Paul being like this, like hybridized Quisatch Heterach, which is supposed to be like, oh, only women can do this, but he's a man and he can do what a woman can do.
That
which
was
I
interesting.
think that was kind of interesting how you flip the script. It's usually, oh, a girl can do what a guy can do. But Herbert also has that with the girl. Zendaya plays her in the movie. You know, that one. Paul marries her.
The one with the face.
Yeah, the one that's like almost kills him on the rocks.
You mean the Fremen?
Yeah, what's her name?
The Fremen girl.
Oh, I should know this. Darn you, Mezcal.
Scrolling through notes.
But we know who you mean.
Yeah, anyway, like she was more of like that, like, okay, so she's kind of the tomboy, you know, I don't say Mary Sue, but almost like does it all kind of woman. I don't think it was super complex.
Yeah.
I don't think he went out of his way to like be inclusive, but at the same time for the era, I think he was much more progressive than I would have given him credit
Well,
for.
and that's why when it got passed to me, I breathed deeply because I was trying to decide how I wanted to approach this. I was not impressed with the representation of women here, but I also didn't expect to be. This was a book written in the 1960s, and
Chani. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
Chani.
Okay.
Yes, but I mean the fact that we had to spend that much time searching for her name, and she's probably the second biggest female character in the book.
Yeah,
says something. And again, I don't want to say this as a criticism because this was written in 1965, and that was, I mean, if Dune came out today, I'm sure Herbert would have written it differently.
Yeah.
I feel like Jessica is a strong character, as you said. Even so, like, she's sort of just there to be like the Virgin Mary who brings along the Savior. That's her job, is to coach along the Savior till he's ready to take over.
I gotta take issue with that a little bit because she does have her own arc in a way, and how you're right, she was a breeding vessel. Pretty much because of the Bene Gesserit way of like
she
trying to
have
create
the power
this thing.
Of being the Duke's actual wife.
But she defied the expectations that she was. So she chose her own role. She birthed a male heir, and she also became a powerful figure in her own right.
And I'm not criticizing the character. I guess I'm saying I'm also just not impressed. I don't think
fair.
that.
That's fair.
Yeah, in 2021 we expect more.
And as you said, it's cool that it's like, oh, Paul can do what women can do, but another way of saying that is like, why can't the women do it then? Like he takes over the role, and I think this is a question that we have queued up for later. But Paul takes on the white male character here takes on a lot of roles, gender-wise and from other cultures
Here
and
to
stuff.
save the Fremen.
Everyone's been waiting for him to come along to do it. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. This is 2021. The book, I'm sure, would have been written differently today. I don't want to say that as a criticism of a book that was written in 1965. In terms of the way it represented another culture, and in terms of the way Jessica was a very strong female character, I think, for a 1965 book.
You make an interesting point that almost gave me a little side, like, whoa, wait a minute. He never says what the skin color of these characters is. I don't think there's any point where it says Paul had creamy skin or anything like that.
Creamy, beautiful, soft
milk.
Yeah, exactly. There was no like, oh, he was dark and coarse.
I had that same thought earlier, actually, because I'm like, why am I picturing? And I'm like, is that just something I'm doing? But when you look at the movie versions that have been made, and when you look at the trailer for the movie that is coming out, I can't remember a specific point in the book where he makes that distinction. But that's how readers apparently pick up.
But yeah, that's like a director's vision is what we see, so we don't get the right to choose. But I feel like you could easily make the case that Paul is, he has a different skin tone or a
blue.
different
He's from Avatar.
Well, I mean, he's got the blue eyes eventually from the spice, so they have to have it be differentiated somehow there. But he could easily have some other kind of
Not necessarily Thrawn.
background.
Oh no, Thrawn is blue with red eyes.
Yeah,
Never
that's-
mind.
Yeah.
Edit that out.
That's okay.
No, I get what you're saying though about the women representation. It's weak by today's standards.
Yes,
So, like,
and that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
the
all
original
I'm
point
I
was
mean,
like,
that's part of the histrionics,
Right.
right? When you look back too much, you can always make it like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it is a little bit much to see the women controlling the breeding and genetics in the Bene Gesserit,
right.
but like, you know, otherwise, Jessica's a fairly strong character.
Mm-hmm.
Chani has a lot of influence over Paul.
His little sister,
His
who
little sister.
has amazing powers herself.
Yeah,
You know, his
she-
little sister doesn't become like a serious character till late in the book, but she has that really badass scene
She's
where
murdering
she's like
people?
mouthing
Yes.
off to the Emperor.
Yeah.
while
Yeah,
she
it's like the
kills
last two
Duke.
chapters.
Yeah, that is a really cool scene.
I gotta say, I think it's. I don't want to say progressive because again, it's hard to make that statement now.
Progressive
facto,
is
but-
by like it's relative to where you are in time.
I think he's fair to both genders in the book. He doesn't put one that high above the other, even though it is a male hierarchy. You can see clearly in their governing
Yeah.
system. The Bene Gesserit have immense power, and they wield immense power. So it's not like he's ignoring, half of the species,
yeah, I agree with
like Tolkien does in his book, where there's 2 nameable women characters that you remember who are in it for a grand total of 5 pages.
Right.
Sometimes they
That's
talk
the
to each
thing.
other for half a page.
They seem like even the movies feel like they
Yeah.
Yes.
underrepresent women, but the movies actually way overrepresent the characters from the book.
Oh, they try to balance it,
Yeah.
which makes you wonder.
It's not gonna happen,
In the
though.
film version that Villeneuve is doing, that we're going to talk about later, what is the role of women going to look like?
Well,
in 2021,
The what is the character's name? The planetologist Keynes.
Beats
Am I saying
Gaines. Yep.
that is in Villeneuve's film? That's going to be a female character.
Recast.
Yeah, he actually completely changed the gender.
so
of the
there you go.
character.
He's already modified the source material to meet modern sensibilities.
Yep.
Not like it's not a drastic change. It doesn't really
No, it doesn't-
alter the narrative any. I wouldn't think.
No, but it is a fair representation of the fact that women could do that too.
Right. Although
sure.
instead of Shani's father, what is her uncle? No, it's her father, right? She was Keynes' daughter,
I think it was Uncle.
or was it her uncle?
It's
Oh yeah, the leader of the tribe was
700
her
pages,
dad. Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, relative.
That's okay.
Doesn't matter. Could be
That's right.
anybody.
Even we who read books for a living have trouble remembering details like that.
We're talking. We're like weighing the representation here, and you got to wonder like other decisions that will be made in like now and later. Like, does it have to be a gender specific character?
Well, yeah, one would imagine as progressivism, keeps influencing sci-fi and speculative fiction, one would imagine that the genders just aren't mentioned.
It's such a I don't want to say like a speculative futuristic kind of idea, but like where our species is going, where we accept so many different variances of ourselves that's got to be down the pipe, right? It has to be.
If you read people like, God, his book is on my shelf right now, on my next to be read list. I can't think of it. He wrote Attack Surface, and he's a Canadian writer who does a lot with speculative fiction and like surveillance capitalism and that sort of thing.
Is it Doctorow?
Yeah, it's Doctorow.
Cory Doctorow?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So, in 2 out of the 3 books that I've read of his, there are gender fluid characters. There's,
As a matter of fact,
as
right?
they wish. Yeah, just
Yeah,
as
right.
it's not made a big deal. It's just they are there. They are fluid or maybe agendered,
Right.
and that's just how they are.
No, it's like Saga, how it was
Yeah.
just effortless.
Right.
It just was, and that
Yeah.
was the best part.
I mean,
just
and
had
this has all been a journey. We can literally trace this over time. But I mean, 15 years ago, it was a big deal if a character like that was in a work of fiction, and they're that aspect of them was a major part of the plot in the
Was
conflict.
allowed to be mentioned.
But I just mean that. The progressive aspect of it was that their journey was the conflict, right?
Yeah.
And I think where we've progressed to is that we don't even have to touch that anymore. A character can be transgender, a character can be gay, a character can be whatever, and that doesn't even have to be part of the plot. They're just a character, like anybody else is a character. And so you certainly don't want to judge a novel in 1965 or 1985 or whatever by those standards. But I think that's where we've gotten to.
Yeah, it is nice that is the criticism we have, right? Like, that it's not that women are kept in the kitchen and we're like, oh, please leave the kitchen and have some agency over your own life in the book. Right. It's, they didn't have an agendered character or a transgendered character or something like that.
I think Paul could fit that role so easily too, like just the way that he already is kind of like a pangender sort of figure, being that he's got these powers that are only specifically gendered, and he has mastery over all of it. I think that I don't want to make the case that he's like an early version of it, but it's almost like a David Bowie kind of like. He's not androgynous.
I'm
but
literally pouring out a drink.
Ziggy Stardust
right now.
But even
he played it left hand, and he played it.
There you go. But you think about the Starman and all that.
Yeah,
I see like a lot of Paul Atreides in that idea. He does have kind of like that just sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Ziggy Stardust.
Well, yeah, there you go. He has that je ne sais quoi.
That's right.
Ziggy Stardust.
I believe it's pronounced spiders from Mars.
Indeed, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, that's a great point, though. Like, in giving Paul the ability to do things that only female characters in the book were supposed to be able to do, he really does kind of combine all of them, which is what makes him so...
androgynous, that's the word.
Androgynous, there you go.
That's what I was looking for, yeah. Which
Well,
is kind of neat.
And the way he's described physically, you're right. I mean, compared to the other warriors, Duncan, Idaho.
Some of them. Duncan, Idaho, the warrior...
Hallett, or whatever his name is.
Isn't Idaho played by Jason Momoa?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, my God.
There you go.
The masculine
But they're
of
all
masculine.
described as, these,
Quote,
like,
unquote.
very hulking, muscular warrior figures. And yet Paul is repeatedly stressed in the book, in the actual language used to describe him, as very thin and almost... not the word effeminate is not used, but that's, like, sort of the imagery that we're given.
It's almost like Herbert's working with the times
to
give you an idea in your back of your mind that he doesn't have to say it out loud, but you get it. He is an effeminate kind of man.
Even in that huge,
doesn't hold him back at all.
The climactic gladiatorial one-on-one battle that he has at the end with the final Harkonnen or the Duke to be or whatever. There's actually a description of the two as they approach each other. And the Harkonnen is the muscular warrior, and I forget exactly how he's described, but they describe Paul as like being like very wiry and whatever.
You just read it today.
Yes, that's fresh in my mind.
Yeah,
this is a paraphrase. It's damn near an exact quote.
Yeah, I always associate it with Paul physically because I'm just a wiry motherfucker, and so it was nice to see a speculative fiction character who takes charge, who is like the one who everyone rallies around and they're looking to, and he's not like Jason Momoa. No offense, Jason Momoa. Appreciate your body, man. But still, it's nice to see like somebody who's realistically human portioned.
Yeah. On the other hand, the horrible emperor was described as having red hair. So you got that as well.
That's true.
Shit.
Well, you know what's interesting? It's like that's
Using
the
those suspensors.
Well, no, that was the Harkonnen.
That was the Duke.
He was bald.
Sorry. Yeah.
That was the Baron. The Baron. Was on
the
the
Baron.
what I'm
Yes,
getting
correct.
holding his bulk up with like anti-grav
Love
units.
that.
Yeah.
The Emperor had a very like Irish almost kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't cool with that. I'm not
Yeah.
Irish at all, but still wasn't cool with it.
But the it's that recessive trait. Like, only these small group of people have these weirdnesses going on.
And the Bene Gesserit have to control who gets those weirdnesses.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they are the matchmaker,
Yeah.
literally. In that
I was actually. I find myself very rarely genuinely surprised when I'm reading a book of like, wow, that was a great twist. But the point that Harkonnen turned out to be Jessica's father, I thought, again, it's in hindsight, it seems like, well, duh. But in reality, I'm looking at it going, like, holy shit, that was came out of nowhere kind of a thing. I was like, that's kind of interesting. Because Paul just reveals it with his sight.
Yeah, and part of me thought, like, that's Harkonnen's obsession with Paul.
Yeah.
But then there's that awkward sexual tension layer that he talks about where, like, he keeps asking for the male servants who are who look like Paul
Right.
to
I read
come
about
into
that.
his bedchamber.
Actually,
and that's just...
I
Please
was
make it less weird.
I was concerned about that, and I just did a search, and I was like, Frank Herbert, like homophobia, stuff like that, just to see if, like, because he's the main villain of the text is clearly a pedophile.
Right. Yeah.
And really, everything that comes back is it's not really about him being a homophobic. It was more like just pedophilia was the biggest thing
that's
about
what
it.
I got. Yeah, I never got, like, Herbert's vibe that he was, like, anti-gay.
There were some other tones in there where you're like, well, is that playing with Herbert, this thing with Harkonnen? But it was more of like, it's just adding texture to a character that, and he even says, like, in his younger days, he was way more adventurous and things like that's why he had a daughter. Like,
he adventured into the female realm.
Right, so there's just, like, almost like a Roman emperor kind of, just, like, excessive tastes is how he was characterized. Like, the guy just, he wasn't that he
Dionysus.
was... Right, he was just predatory. And that was, like, what the villanation was. It wasn't... Villanation? Sure. It wasn't that he was trying to say, like, well, if you like dudes, you're gross and there's something wrong with you. It was more...
It was the excess.
Yes.
And the Roman emperor is a good way to put it, actually, because there's a lot, and it wasn't just, like, you know, the sex and the pedophilia. It was the, you know, I mean, there's the scene where in order to, like, make a point to his nephew, he's like, well, we're going to go down to all these women you sleep with, and you're going to kill them with your bare hands. You know, it was, like, the overkill. And
it's control.
Yeah.
Power.
Yeah.
But just, like, the sheer, like, you know, excess of it.
Yeah.
Not just the power and control, but, like, the bloodthirstiness and excess of it all. And I think a Roman emperor, or, you know, certain Roman emperors, is a great way to put that.
Or Epstein and Prince Andrew.
Oh. My hand went for the bell, and then I pulled back from it. Oh, you know,
too on the nose. Sorry, guys.
A little too on the nose. Yeah. No, you know,
history's interesting. Current events are just depressing.
Just sad. Yeah. You know, to quote Nine Inch Nails, there's a lot of sex and that violence there when it comes to the Harkonnens. And
that's Bush, man.
Yeah, that's Bush.
It's everything's Zen.
There's no sex in your violence.
You
great quote, though.
You can have that. I'm giving that to you. Yeah.
I gave it to you for the quote, though.
Side note, I always wonder where Bush will be looked at in the pantheon of 90s music, because they kind of get bagged on.
Yeah.
But they were huge.
16 Stone was
a while there.
Fucking, I mean, there's like 5 singles that everybody knows.
It was seminal.
Album. Yeah. I mean, I remember being...
No. I'm reaching for the bell, because seminal has a roots in semen. You did it for me.
Damn it.
I don't even know where to go from there.
What's on the script?
Yeah, what's next?
Circular logic here. All right, so, you know, we might kind of dabble in this, but the idea of...
I dabble in many things.
That's true, yeah. But
not unlike Harkonnens.
That's what you call it.
Planets and all this stuff. But, you know, any connections you see the other texts or series? You know, Game of Thrones kind of comes to mind, as Sean pointed out.
Yeah, that stood out the most to me. I'm like reading it going like, wow, there's no way that Gurm did not read Dune before he sat down.
Is that the going abbreviation for G.R.R. Martin?
If not, then I've coined something tonight. Gurm. I doubt that I have, though. Somebody else must be calling him Gurm.
I'm sure. Hashtag GRRM.
Yes, but by the way, George Martin, if you're listening to this, get back to work.
Yeah.
All right? I want to read this series. Thank
you. HBO finished it.
That's the one person that we're going to tell you, go ahead and turn the podcast off.
Yes.
Yep.
Finish it, please. Anyway.
Return to your computer.
I forgot totally. Oh yeah, but just that it just felt like the houses, the political machinations, the savior character. It's like, wow, this is note for note what the Song of Ice and Fire, for its real title, goes back to, and it's like
both literally die. Both Paul and Jon Snow literally die for a few days or a time. Right, Paul dies when he takes the poison,
melange poison,
and he transmutes it in his body.
Well, and that's all part of the monomyth, the hero's journey. Like, they have to descend into hell and the underworld and, like, have a sort of resurrection moment and everything.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny how, as much as I hate stereotypes and archetypes, everything I like uses them pretty effectively.
There's a reason why they
son of a bitch, Carl Jung, you motherfucker.
No,
you.
Older than time itself, man.
Yeah. And that's Joseph Campbell with the monomyth, and that is you know, even modern stories that are intentionally attempting to subvert the hero's journey are in some way incorporating a version of the hero's journey. I mean, it's just, you don't have it's not because we all are copying the same story. It's because, like, in order to have a story, there are certain things that have to be done, whether literally or metaphorically. And all Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung, how do you say that?
I would say Jung.
However it is, they both they identified it. They didn't create it. They just sort of...
There's something in our reptilian brain, or part of our humanity that just, like, that's it. That's the story. That's the way it is. There's no getting around that. If you try to go too far off the path, you're not going to be successful.
No. And to return to your question, I don't want to say a specific text that it reminded me of, but I did make the point before that I would argue that Dune is not science fiction as much as it's fantasy. And the reason I feel that way is because I don't feel that science is in any way, or technology is in any way, like a central part of the plot here. But you have an emperor, and you have, like, feuding houses, and you have, like, the savior figure who is the son of the rightful ruler who has to, like, save the world from destruction and restore order to the galaxy and so on, you know?
Even the science parts of it, like the science fiction parts, are just... It's like we've advanced so much as a species that it's not even science anymore. No. It's become something else.
Right.
It's like, the guild controls
like
space travel. Yes, it's it's mythologized. Exactly right, Adam. Good point. Ding for yourself.
There
yes,
we go.
That's for you, buddy.
I'm just freely giving dings away currently.
Shouldn't have bought 2 of these things.
No, you should have bought 2 of them. That's right, because I get my own when I sit over here, and I can control that one.
We gotta break out into, like, filming these things and putting them on YouTube, but, like, obscuring our faces somehow so people don't know who we are.
Yeah. Well, you know...
So we can see, like, the absurdity of our situations.
I think this is a lovely situation. We're on your back patio. We've got some buffalo chicken bites. We've had a couple drinks.
Yeah, I guess.
Life is good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it.
Life is good. It's a Thursday night, man. All right, so I think I know where we're going with this. But before we talk about Denis Villeneuve and his cinematic vision for this, which I am so freaking ready for that I might need to change my pants. There we go. I needed to work it in.
Wow.
Yeah, it took a little bit. I was really trying, and you guys kept shifting the landscape on me, and I couldn't catch up with you. No, that's fine. Let's just get.
You've had a couple margaritas. It just took you a little longer tonight.
Yeah,
that's all. There's no
right.
shame in that.
Maybe she appreciates how long it took.
I'm sure that's true.
4-play. This is like 10-play.
10-play. That's right. There you go. We're done for the month. I'm presuming this is 3 thumbs up. Is that right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Just making sure.
I'm actually looking forward to reading the next book in the series when I get a moment, just because I would like to see where it goes from here.
Yeah. Sure. Mike, have you read the next book?
I have not. No. As I said, I finished the first book today. But I've said, I think Sean and I talked, and I said there were parts of this book that were really thrilling to me. There were other parts of this book that I just was, they dragged for me. But, I also was trying to be objective enough to say that wasn't really the book's fault as much as it was circumstances. Sure. This is a book that demands to be read with large chunks of time.
Yeah, consistently.
And, sometimes, life doesn't allow you that. And sometimes you're trying to read this book, you're like, I got 20 minutes, and I got to read, a few pages here and a few pages there. And Dune is a difficult book to read that way. So when you're deep in the midst of, like, Paul and Jessica slowly learning, like, the Freeman habits and culture and history and stuff.
A still suit for, 7 pages?
Exactly. That's the type of thing where I'm sitting here on... One part of my brain is appreciating that and appreciating, like, the world building aspect of it. But another part of my brain is like, man, I got 5 minutes and then I got to leave to take my daughter to gymnastics.
Yeah.
But that was not a reflection on the book. That was a reflection on my reading circumstances. Yeah. I think you said before that, looking back on the whole thing, you appreciate it even more having, like, read it and finished it and looking back on it than any individual aspect of reading it. That's how I feel. I mean, the book is more than the sum of its parts, and I do look forward to continuing the series.
As a reading experience, there's pacing issues. You can't get around it.
There always are in epic novels, though,
absolutely.
I feel like.
Especially when there's huge time lapses, too. Like, there's moments that just go and go. Not unlike motorcycles speeding down the road out the way that you're probably hearing in the background. Dogs barking mercilessly in the background.
No foxes screaming tonight.
No, we've got other noises tonight. But,
we'll get there.
Yeah. But I think, like you're right. You look at it as a whole text, and it becomes that cultural milestone.
Yeah.
If you were looking at it in little pieces, you'd be like, what the fuck am I reading?
Yeah.
No, there's chapters that are fascinating.
Right.
I thought the gladiator spectacle toward the end of book 2. I think it was toward the end of book 2, the Harkonnen gladiator thing.
Yes,
just
it was.
you have this central sort of
the gladiator
with the Nah Baron or the Nay Baron.
exactly,
or
and
whatever,
you have so it's a central thing taking part on like the sands of the Colosseum, and you have the central fight, right? But then around that, you have all the scheming and the double meaning in every sentence and all that stuff. It's a fascinating chapter. You have other chapters, like I said, where it's just like, you know, so technically, if you're going to call someone out in the Freeman culture, these are, 10 pages of, like, subparagraphs of explanations.
Yeah.
Of,
There's that mirrored fight that Paul has with the Freeman, Freeman, that lasts, like, a page.
Right.
Right, where Paul's remembering some of his training, and he has a few steps, jabs the guy,
Right.
game over, carries water away.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
Inherits
really
wife and kids.
inherits the wife and kids, which, I did take issue with that, for sure. But it's really just a vehicle to find out more about the culture that he's going to now control.
Right.
Literally.
I was going to say something, and I completely forgot what it was. I hate when that happens.
About time.
No, you know what it was? It was not unlike what I was going to say anyway, that there's moments in like certain films I've seen many times that Adam's reaching.
I'm ready.
They're reaching for the bells already.
Mike and I are ready.
Like these vignettes of like what would happen in a post-apocalyptic world where maybe all of the world's ice melted, or maybe governments around the world collapsed, and only like a singular figure who delivers the mail can save.
Just waiting for a message to come.
There it is. All three of us locked in. Yes. We really got to set a Patreon and watch that.
We really do.
I think we need to retire some of these tropes and move on to some different things. Yeah.
Season 2. We'll count anything maybe after this season 2.
Okay, sounds good. This is it. We were officially retiring Bob Dylan. Yeah. We're retiring Kevin Costner movies, and we are retiring sexual jokes. Well, we'll never retire those.
Well, no.
No, those
me
you gotta
specifically.
say.
Adam having to make one. So, guys, this is your last, or folks, people, friends, podcast listeners, this is your last chance to hear those jokes. So, listen to it multiple times from unique devices and bump our numbers. Thank you.
Spread it to your friends there. Sure. Yeah. All right. So we've covered a lot of ground today. 700-page book. We've covered 2 different cocktails. Before we talk about what we want to read next, which still kind of is up for debate internally in the pod, but we kind of know what we're looking at.
Are we a pod? Is that what we are?
We are a pod.
Ooh, like dolphins.
Podcast pod. Yeah. I'm sorry. Edit that out, please. John. Please edit that out.
No. That's the hook.
Oh, fine.
Adam's dolphin is now the hook.
It's not my sex joke. That's my dolphin.
Oh god.
I'm gonna copy that and paste that to be the cold open.
Ooh. I'm actually gonna edit that into the music, so it's like.
Oh, no.
That's the lyric over.
That's great.
We have tentative plans, kind of just informally, to go see the movie.
Yes, sir.
What are we thinking?
Oh,
so
it's
far?
formal. We're going.
Yeah. I kind of have a penciled in month of at some point we're going to see this movie.
Well, I'll tell you, I have said on this podcast before, and I'll tell everyone who listens to me whether they want to or not. My favorite director today is this director, Denis Villeneuve, and I am so excited. I think the trailer looks insanely great. Yep. The one trailer I think uses it's a Pink Floyd song. Which one was it? Was it "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" or one of them? I
saw that one.
But it's a cover of it though. It's not like the Pink Floyd song, but. Anyways, I just, I think that everything this director has done has been an incredible masterpiece. I've yet to see a film by this director that doesn't just, blow me away. And I think even having openly stated my bias in favor of this director, I think he's the perfect pick for a movie like this, because what you don't want to do is take a novel as complex as we all agree that Dune is and turn it into a summer blockbuster. You want to turn it into something that has some gravitas. Yeah. And, Villeneuve is a director who is not afraid to slow the pace down. He is not afraid to bring in the art and the intellect to his movies. And I think if any director working today could do this movie justice, that it will be him. So I am thrilled, and I can't wait.
I'm hoping third time's the charm, because it's had its ups and downs in film, and it'd be nice to finally get a definitive version where you can go, that really captures the essence of the text, and it's beautifully done. I'm not a huge fan of movies based on books to begin with, and there's very few that I think actually do a good job. But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens here, so I am stoked.
Yeah, I think Mike hit the nail on the head a lot when it comes to talking about the goal of the director. And this is not a summer blockbuster. This is not a Memorial Day blowout release,
right,
against everybody else. This is a thoughtful, complex release. And I think that was the issue with the other attempts at the movie, is that they were trying to make some sort of action blockbuster when Herbert actively works against that.
Right.
There's a war here that we don't see, really.
They went for visual spectacle, whereas the story is way beyond that. Maybe Game of Thrones, being as popular as it is, gave people the right to say, okay, look, this can work. Audiences are receptive to this. You got to go with the original kind of feel.
Well, and Villeneuve can sure do spectacle too, but he does it smartly. What's that?
I'm thinking Blade Runner.
Yeah, Blade Runner 2049, Arrival. I mean,
Arrival kind of had its moments too. It was plotting for the first third of it.
But there are moments where you're like, whoa!
Oh, for sure.
Overwhelms you visually.
He does it. What I'm saying is he does both so well.
Yeah.
I mean, all the things that people like and appreciate about Christopher Nolan, taking nothing away from Christopher Nolan, I think he's great.
I'll take a lot from Christopher Nolan.
But all the things that people please continue doing that, because I feel like that is adding.
Did you get the Foley credit for that?
But all the things that people like about Christopher Nolan films, I think are even truer of Denis Villeneuve films.
With skill, I think.
Exactly. I think that he has, if you're there for the action and the spectacle, he has that too. But he also has the stuff that will just blow your mind intellectually and artistically. So,
agreed.
Yeah.
There it goes. I was leaving space for you. I saw you thinking about that one. So, all right. Shall we prep the nerds for the next book then?
Let's do.
We've been talking about it. We haven't had a hard yes on what we're going to read, except for Mike being the resident Lovecraft expert here.
Experts.
Is that something you really want to carry as a title?
No. Mike is able to handle complexity. He can handle multitudes.
That is right. Thank you.
Multitudes.
Just finished Leaves of Grass, so I'm going to quote that forever now.
Nice.
Yeah. So we agreed to a couple texts, and we're
I think there's a couple that I think are no-brainers. We'll decide as a cast what we want to do, but I think that probably Call of Cthulhu is obviously.
Can we listen to Metallica in the background?
I insist that we do.
Thank you.
I absolutely insist that we do. And but what we're going to tackle, we don't obviously have the time or space unless we want to become a Lovecraft cast to do all of it. But we're gonna hit the big ones, I think. And
I have to watch an episode of Lovecraft Country. Too,
I have almost finished season 1, and I actually stopped because I was into the final couple episodes, and I'm sorry I'm blanking, but what is the actor's name who just died? He was in The Wire.
Chadwick Boseman?
No. Just died like a week ago. Yeah. He was in The Wire and several other things, and he was in Lovecraft Country, and he died, and that was a little depressing, so I hit pause on the show. But the show Lovecraft Country is brilliant. It's depressing that there will not be a second season.
Michael K. Williams.
That's
right.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's right.
But yeah, this will be a fun cast. I mean, we're obviously we timed it so that it would be in time for Halloween. We'll talk about the different versions of Lovecraft, and we'll talk about, I'm sure, the problematic historical figure that is Lovecraft, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah,
same
here. So stay tuned for what we're going to grab from Lovecraft, but you can guarantee we said Call of Cthulhu.
For sure. And Mountains of Madness, I would also say.
You seem a yes on that.
Yeah, I'm down with whatever Mike recommends. So.
Yeah, we're on the fence on a third piece, but, at least pick yourself up Call of Cthulhu and Mountains of Madness. If you get any collection of Lovecraft, I'm sure they'll be there together.
Those are two of the, the seminal ones, the seminal ones.
Yep. They give birth to other things. So.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
That's right. Giving their water to the land there. That gets us back.
I like the
doesn't
water
it?
reference, though.
Yeah.
You know, giving the moisture to the land.
Yeah.
The
Oh.
moisture belongs
Yeah,
to the tribe.
he never talked about that. Like, what's your jizz worth?
I presume masturbation would be forbidden in the Fremen.
Oh, man, count me out.
Yeah. I'm Team Harkonnen.
No. Well, or maybe it just stays in your still suit, which sounds uncomfortable.
Yeah, oh man, that's a whole other cast. You know what? Stay tuned also for our Dune movie cast when we come back and
Yes.
reminisce.
That'll be November.
Yes,
Yeah,
we're going to do a
correct.
special promo in November for that one.
Yep.
So October we're thinking Lovecraft, and November we're thinking Dune movie cast. It sounds
Absolutely.
like. All right. Stay nerdy then. We will see you next time.